Belgium's nationalist youth leader Dries Van Langenhove has been convicted for inciting violence and Holocaust denial and has been sentenced to a year in prison and a hefty fine. Despite plans to appeal, his trial was seen as politically charged, with so-called human rights groups welcoming his verdict.
Welcome, Pieter Cleppe, editor for Riks Europe from Belgium but based in Brussels. Can you start off by giving us a summary of the background with Dries Van Langenhove?
Well, Dries Van Langenhove is a Belgian influencer. You can situate him on the sort of the identitarian spectrum, I would say, politically. So he's always talking about migration, identity, crime, that kind of stuff. He's labeled far right, which is, I guess, a little bit of a lazy label. In the past, he was sort of the chairman, the person responsible for a chat group online, where a lot of memes were being posted. Some of them racist, according to the judge, which was presiding over the case that was brought before the judge by the prosecutor. Long story short, after years of procedure, the judge ruled that Van Langenhove was guilty for those memes that had been posted, and he was sentenced to a 1-year prison sentence. Now, it's not the end of the proceedings. He will appeal, so we will know the final ruling only later, probably in a year or more only. But fundamentally, I think this raises a lot of questions.
What are your thoughts on the conviction of Dries Van Langenhove and his role in the far-right movement in Belgium?
Well, I do think he's, first of all, his role, he's very influential, especially among young people on platforms like TikTok, for example. But look, more fundamentally, I think this is just another case where people are being prosecuted on the basis of an opinion. A hate crime. So it's slightly more complicated because parts of the sentencing are also because he was offering pepper spray, because according to the judge, this online group, so to speak, was also sort of inciting hatred versus a very specific person. So I guess there you could grant some leeway to the judge and say, okay, fine, that's not acceptable. But certainly when it comes to expressing opinions, making racist jokes, obviously a lot of that was in bad taste, was probably hurtful for people. You could say it's unacceptable, this should be challenged, but the question is, should it also be against the law? And according to Belgian legislation, it is illegal. If you say somebody is a racist, you actually accuse that person of having committed a crime. In theory, the prosecutor is obliged to prosecute that person. That's one of the problems, that apart from the fact that you can wonder, should this even be illegal? I absolutely do not think so. There's also massive double standards. I'm sure in daily life lots of people make all kinds of offensive, hateful, racist remarks in many different ways, and they are not being prosecuted. So that in itself is already quite complicated and quite problematic. In the case of Mr. Van Langenhove, he did get the maximum sentence from the judge. Frankly, for things he did not say himself, but because he was managing some kind of an online group. Also, pepper spray, it's, I think, questionable to see a harsh sentence for offering to sell pepper spray when you know that Brussels is a center for illegal trade in arms weapons. So you can wonder, I mean, should this really be the priority of the justice system?
But how do you perceive the impact of Van Langenhove's actions and his rhetoric in Belgian society, particularly regarding the issues you mentioned of racism and, for instance, the Holocaust denial?
Well, of course, this is great for him in terms of communication. He already raised a few tens of thousands of euros, if I'm not mistaken, um, from people that support him, that want to, support his political cause. People look back at the Weimar Republic, which basically was the German system of government before Hitler came to power, and they say, well, if we don't have a democracy that is sort of taking action against more radical elements, then we will end up, in the same boat as back then. But that's absolutely historically incorrect, because in the Weimar Republic, some prominent Nazis, like the editor-in-chief of the Nazi magazine Der Stürmer, was also prosecuted by the authorities. And just like today, these people only became stronger. Now, I don't want to compare Van Langenhove with the Nazis back then. That's not fair. But I think it shows that if you don't like Islamists, if you don't like the far left, if you don't like the far right identitarians, that's absolutely it's key to sort of challenge them in the debate. But to legally go after them will only make them stronger. And even if apart from that consideration, it's also completely, I think, against the idea of a democracy where you should have freedom of speech, and where freedom of speech only stops when you have specific acts of threatening with violence to specific people in very clear-cut cases. But specifically that, is often not being prosecuted. When you have Islamists attacking, there's like a Belgian researcher, he's been threatened by Islamists because he's gathering a lot of intelligence, and then the authorities, they fail to properly prosecute that. And still at the same time now, our Minister in Justice here has just announced that it will be a top priority to go after what he calls spreading of hatred online and things like that, which are of course very broad category, very arbitrary to define. So I think this is absolutely the wrong path to take.
So what does it say about the Belgian judicial system and its approach to addressing the far-right extremism, or so-called far-right extremism?
The Belgian justice system is, lacking means. There's not enough prison cells. Many crimes are not, like for example rape crimes, many rape crimes are not being properly prosecuted. And at the same time, they seem to find time and spend a lot of taxpayers' money to go after these kind of cases. I think this is a politicized trial. I don't think anybody who looks at what should be the top priority of the Belgian justice system can in good conscience come to the conclusion that this deserves priority. To be fair, as I've mentioned, there are a number of things that you could say, well, yeah, offering pepper spray is against the law, so we should not condone that. Also, inciting hatred against a specific person. Okay, I guess then you're sort of nearing the limit. But for the most part, opinion crimes, I don't think should deserve priority. In the first place, it should not be a criminal offense.
What measures do you believe should be taken to address a spread of extremist ideologies or hate speech, both online, offline, as exemplified in this situation?
I don't think it's the responsibility of the authorities of the state. It's the responsibility of civil society to challenge the ideas that are deemed indeed hateful and bad. And the job of the government is to make sure that people that, for example, challenge Islamists' ideas can do so in all safety. And sadly, that's not the case in Belgium and in many parts of Western Europe. Many people that have denounced fanatic Islamists, like, for example, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, a courageous Dutch activist, have had to flee. because the authorities were not able. I don't say they're not willing. They did try, but there's so many people that are dangerous that it gets very tricky to offer a proper defense. And I do think that the fact that they then go after some kind of fringe cases like Van Langenhove, I think this is more to do with maybe trying to show that they are doing something, go after the low-hanging fruit, rather than actually, have their priorities right.
How do you foresee the political landscape in light of this conviction for Belgium?
There are elections coming up in Belgium on the 9th of June, the same day as the European Parliament elections. And according to opinion polls, both the far right in the northern part, the Dutch-speaking part of the country, and the far left in the Francophone part, they are doing very well. So you can see some kind of an anti-system vote being expected. This will then lead to likely a very difficult process to form a new government again, because typically, as I mentioned, the Dutch-speaking part votes for right-wingers, the Francophone part in Belgium votes for left-wingers, and then the politicians have to try to form a federal government, which is getting more difficult every single time.
Thank you, Pieter Cleppe, editor of Riks Europe from Belgium but based in Brussels.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Riks Europe.